Alabama. Sorry, our video stopped. We're on page 55 and December the 10th. Find that on your Chromebook now, page 55. I knew real life romances never worked out. I remember the stories that Grandma used to tell about her and Grandpa. He was in the Navy and he had to be away sometimes for 6 or 8 months at a time, but he wrote to her every single day while he was on board the ship. And even though he could have ended up being someone really important in the Navy, do they have generals? He decided to quit that because he couldn't stand being away from Grandma. When he got home, he worked 2 jobs for a while so he could save enough money to buy a house. It's the house we live in right now. I always liked hearing those stories from Grandma, but now this is kind of scary. Now sometimes I think, what if she only told me the good parts? Grandpa died, and when I was only a year or 2 old, so I never really knew him. What if most of the time he treated Grandma the way Dad treats Mom? I think I would have been able to tell the way Grandma talked about Grandpa. I don't think Grandma would have put up with that. I don't think Grandma would have put up with what Mom puts up with. Okay, so then the teacher writes her note, and it's always in that italics. Tish, these are fine. I'm glad to see that you're writing so much. I hope this journal is serving as a release for you. I know life can sometimes seem very difficult when you're in high school. It's very healthy to write things out. December the 16th. Don't read this, Mrs. Dunfrey. That was an odd note Mrs. Dunfrey wrote after my last entries. You don't suppose she's been reading some of these, do you? Geez, who am I asking about that? You'd think I thought this journal is a real person. I asked Rochelle and Chastity how they were doing their journals. I knew better than to ask Sandy because she's not doing one at all. Says that it's such a small part of her grade that it doesn't matter, and anyhow, she doesn't care if she flunks. But that's Sandy for you. Both Rochelle and Chastity said they just write any dumb thing that comes to their minds, and they don't bother writing "don't read" at the top of their entries. Chastity said she wrote a whole entry, "I love Mike Hunter, I love Mike Hunter," maybe 50 times, and Mrs. Dunfrey didn't care. If I was Chastity, I'd be way embarrassed about that. But maybe I should be more careful, even with the "don't read" label. I should be more careful anyhow, since I carry this notebook around, and I guess anyone could end up taking it and reading it. Sabra Carson picked up my stack of notebooks and books instead of hers in the bathroom the other day. It was an honest mistake. Since we both had a geometry book, our English book, and blue notebooks, Sabra's okay. She didn't have my books for more than about 5 seconds. But what if she'd opened my notebook and seen something that I wrote about Dad being away or about him hitting Mom? I'd die if people knew. I'm going to tape the old entries together, and then I'm only going to write dumb things like Chastity and Rochelle do. It's not like it matters anyhow. December the 18th. Don't read this, Mrs. Dunfrey. Everybody's dying for Christmas vacation. I don't know why the stupid school board won't let us out until the day before Christmas Eve. There's a Christmas party tonight. Should be a great time. I'm not going with Sandy, though. Maybe I'll go with Chastity and Mike. Except I'll feel like a third wheel. I wish I'd had a car. I'll be 16 next Wednesday. Hooray! But then I have to take driver's ed, and anyhow, who can afford their own car? Besides Sandy, I mean. Sandy told me that if I'd gone out with Bud Turner, he'd probably let me borrow his car. He's a jerk, all right. But he does drive a cool car, a Camaro, a 1967, bright red. It just doesn't look right with him at the wheel. December the 21st. Don't read, Mrs. Dunfrey. Mrs. Dunfrey said in class today that we don't have to hand this in again until after Christmas. I guess teachers get lazy around holidays too, huh? Just joking, in case you are reading this. So I won't have to write at all over Christmas break, and then I'll only have to do one entry after we get back. It's good I'm ahead on this because I'm behind on everything else. We have finals the week after we get back from break, and I don't know if I'll be able to pass any of them. It's been so long since I've paid attention in any of my classes. It's not my fault, though. I have personal things going on, things beyond my control. December the 28th. Don't read this, Mrs. Dunfrey. I know I decided I wasn't going to write anything real in here anymore, and I know it's crazy to touch any school stuff over break, but things are so bad I feel like I'm going to explode if I don't do something, and sometimes it did used to make me feel better if I wrote things down. Dad's gone. For good this time, I think. And it's all my fault. At least Mom thinks it's all my fault. Okay, let's add a few facts. What do we know? Things are getting really, really tough at home. Dad left. Mom's blaming her. And she thinks that writing in the journal really helps, but it's over break, so she's not seeing any of her friends. And what else can you add there? Add a couple more facts. We didn't see him for 2 weeks. And then he waltzed in on Christmas Eve with a bunch of presents and a live Christmas tree. And I swear, he even dressed up like Santa Claus. He came in saying, ho, ho, ho. Has everyone in this house been good this year? And then he started handing out presents, fancy ones. You could tell that he'd had the clerks at the mall wrap them for him. Maybe if Matt had looked happy, I would have kept my big mouth shut, but he didn't. He looked confused. He reminded me of this puppy the Rockholds down the street used to have. Joey Rockhold hated having to take the dog for a walk. So he'd take it out on the dog, jerking his chain first one way and then the other, and the dog would try to go the way that Joey wanted him to go, but it was impossible. And as soon as the dog started in one direction, Joey jerked him another way. That dog eventually got so mean, the Rockholds had to have him put to sleep. I always thought it was Joey's fault. So anyhow, that's how Matt looked, like that confused puppy. He didn't know if he was supposed to run up to Dad and play along with the Santa Claus stuff, or if he was supposed to hang back with me because Dad would only be here for a little while. It's like Dad had chains on all of us, and he was jerking us all around. Mom did run over to him and talk about how beautiful the presents were, and how he really shouldn't have. But even she looked a little baffled and scared. I decided no chains, no faking for me. Okay, baffled is a great word. That means confused. Mom looked a little confused. I decided no chains and faking for me. I went over to